Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Liam Hicks, and you're watching Fish on First Live.
Hello and welcome to this edition of FOF Live presented by About the Fans. As always, you can check out About the Fans for your brand new FOF merchandise collection and get 10% off at checkout with code FOF10 and get that beautiful shirt that Eli is wearing, hat, everything that you need from FOF. Of course, I'm Daniel, your host. We have Eli and our guest right here for the first time this season, Mr. Ryan Schlesinger. Ryan, it is great to have you on. How are you feeling talking some Marlins?
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. Happy to always come on. I'm feeling pretty positive right now. Obviously, they're coming off a very tough West Coast trip where they lost 5 of 6 and have fallen to the very bottom of the National League, only in front of the Rockies and right there with the Pirates. But I think the vibes are high. I still think they are a competitive team. They can compete with some of the mid-tier / lower-tier teams in Major League Baseball, like the A's. And once their pitching rotation and bullpen gets a little healthier, I think they can still stay afloat near 500.
Yeah, you mentioned that road trip from the West Coast. Let's talk about that previous series and what a series it was for the Marlins against the defending World Series champs, LA Dodgers, was such a stacked team. You see there are Tommy Edman, Shohei Ohtani, just all the guys there that they had, and just really struggling with the starting pitching for the Marlins. 3 starting pitchers gave up a total of 16 earned runs combined, which is not good. You want to see at all, even if you're going up against the best team in all of baseball. 16 earned runs will not get you any of the games. Eli, talk to us before you get into deep dive and maybe each game. Give me the overall stance on the starting pitching. Cal did not look good. Sandy has not looked good at all. Just what is up with the starting pitching?
I was surprised by that number you gave. I felt it was a lot more runs than even 16 from these starters over these 3 games. It's a total mess. Everybody except for Max. And then even earlier on this trip, Max had his worst start of the season, so that doesn't help. Yeah, this was for a team that was already struggling to get guys out to face the Dodgers, which you could argue whether they're the best lineup or not, but they have to be the deepest lineup in all baseball. Basically, everybody 1 through 9 in their lineup has the potential to do damage and did do damage, including guys on the bench that don't even start certain games, ones that even aren't everyday players. It's such everybody on that team is a combination of discipline and power and just good bat to ball ability. So it was a nightmare matchup for guys that were already struggling. Yeah, the Sandy one was the most troubling because of obviously the higher standards that he sets, and also because it went wrong from the very first batter. It may have been the first pitch, though, Tommy. Is that right? Maybe in the first pitch of that game that he started, they gave up that home run, and it only got worse from there. It wasn't only Ohtani. There have been very smart people looking into this, and I kind of echo what they are saying. A lot of it just comes down to his control, that he's just not throwing pitches where he wants to throw them. It's leading to a lot of walks, first of all, and then even misses inside the zone that are leading to his stuff getting barreled. So it's both the control and the commands. So even when he's throwing strikes, he's not commanding it where he wants to. I think, to me, in watching him through the years, and we're at a stage where I feel like I've seen almost every start he's ever made as a Marlin. Like, the key in so many aspects is when he gets his sinker running into right-handed batters in a way that either gets them to whiff at it or make weak contact. And there were like examples in this game where it's just center cut, middle. He's just not placing it where he wants to. And major league hitters can catch up to velocity. They could catch up to high 90s velo. What made him notable is that he was getting that movement and placing it where he wanted to. he really has not had consistent controller command in any start this year. He had it for the first few innings of the first game of the season. And then you zoom out and you see how the Pirates have done since then. And you think, well, I guess that was probably the easiest matchup of the bunch, the one that went pretty well until even that one came undone in the middle innings. Yeah, it's been kind of a worst case scenario, except for the fact that he insists that he's healthy. He really hasn't had any injury scares inside his starts. So ultimately, as long as he still has a chance to prove himself and get back on track, that's what's most important. They'll certainly give him a very long leash because all the other guys in this rotation are struggling almost as much as he is. It just means that, yeah, there's just not, they have plenty of time to work this out. It's the fact that so many of his outings have been mediocre. This one probably the worst of all, but the fact that each of his outings have had some of these familiar struggles, it sucks. It really just, everybody's rooting for this guy, even guys that aren't on the Marlins, even fans of other teams, especially, they're rooting for him to get back on track so that they can feel good about trading for him. So that's what I come down to, is that it's such a bummer that he's gone off to this really bad start. I would think from following his entire career, you'd think that he just has still this incredible confidence in himself and he'll put in the work to get back on track. The thing is, I think his next start lines up to be against the Dodgers again. So we'll have to talk about that more on the next stream, because this was as tough a lineup as you're going to face.
Yeah, Ryan, what did you think of the West Coast trip from the Marlins, even specifically on this Dodgers one? Eli mentioned Sandy. What about Eddie? Because that's another guy fans had a lot of high hopes for, especially how he's been performing, or maybe what he has in his pitching arsenal. Really, just it's so much that he can unlock, and he has the potential to be an ace top pitcher for the Marlins. But just what he's been doing as of late, it just seemingly. What do you do with a guy like that?
Yeah, I still don't know what to do, because it felt like maybe as recent as this offseason, the simple answer was to throw him in the bullpen. And I feel like it hasn't been the command this year. That hasn't been the big issue for Cabrera. The command is still a concern. He walked 3 Dodgers batters in 4 innings during his start out there in LA. But I feel like he's making a lot more mistakes. The stuff is still very good. He hasn't gotten any worse from a stuff standpoint, but he just makes a ton of mistakes. He can't locate his pitches as good as he'd want to, and that's caused just some bad outings. You look at the most recent one against the Dodgers, 5 earned runs, 3 walks compared to only 2 strikeouts. And I want to emphasize only 2 strikeouts. A guy with his stuff should be striking out more batters. I know it's only 4 innings against one of the best offenses in baseball in terms of making good contact and not swinging and missing, just putting up good at-bats. That's what the Dodgers do. So it's going to be hard to strike out guys like that. But still, I feel like he has such a higher ceiling with how good his stuff is. There have been some encouraging signs. Obviously, he's only made 4 starts this season. But I think his first start against Washington went solid. I think they left him in there for a little bit too long, but still he only allowed 2 earned runs. And then against Cincinnati, 3 earned runs allowed and 7 strikeouts in 5 innings. So there have been some trends in the right direction for Cabrera, but still he hasn't been able to put it together. And that's basically been what we've been saying about Cabrera for the past 4 or 5 years, ever since he made his major league debut.
Eli, with Eddie, when does his stuff stop outweighing his outcome? Well, when do you have to start seeing that, okay, he might have the stuff, but it's just not resulting in what you wanted? And when do you have to stop relying on, oh, he has the stuff, he has the stuff, he has the stuff?
Man, I mean, that's a good question. To me, I was already done with him prior to this year, at least as a starter, as Ryan mentions. The possibility, I'd like to see what it looks like in the pen, and they've just been stubborn about giving him an opportunity here. To me, the thing is, I just don't know how. I feel like the team is going to be very stubborn about it. As you mentioned, his stuff is still awesome, and that is something that this front office especially really prioritizes, quality of stuff that guys have. They're going to bet on guys that have nasty stuff, even if the results aren't there over an extended period, even if there are other concerns. I think first and foremost, they're looking for ones that have unique stuff, and he certainly still has that unique changeup in the middle of his pitch mix that moves and has velo that is so uncommon in the game, and trying to fix that and customize around it. So I don't know how long the leash is at this point. We're now on the horizon of Ryan Weathers' return, making a rehab start tonight, probably one more after that, and then he should be back. So he'll need a rotation spot. And but you look in this group, let's see, it's maybe now they have a pretty obvious opening with, but right now they have like a void in the rotation to replace what used to be Gillespie's like spot. So it's not imminent pressure on Cabrera with that opening coming. I mean, we look further down and Yuri is on his way back and making a path, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a balance where if he continues pitching this poorly for a few more starts, then maybe they do pull the plug and just bring anybody up to give him a chance. Because it's not only those guys. There's Adam Mazer, who is knocking on the door and who we thought should be seriously considered to come up today. He is still waiting for his opportunity. And that's a guy that's already on the 40-man roster. There's Robbie Snelling in Double-A, who has been great for the most part since coming over in his trade and establishing himself as a really awesome prospect with a lot of starter trades. They have other options right here. And Eddie ultimately is an old regime guy. He wasn't acquired by Bendix, of course. But the thing is, because of that stuff, I think he's going to get a much longer leash. That's why he's been a fixture in this rotation more so than Beozo. And Beozo actually performs when he gets the opportunity to do so, whereas Edward, for the most part, has not. So I think you still take it one start at a time. The thing is, it's just so unavoidable with him, especially similar to Sandy, but even more so with Eddie, like that he can't control the running game. And it seems like that really causes some innings to snowball on him when he puts one runner on and that guy steals seconds and then steals third base, allowing teams, it gives them such little margin for error because once guys get on against him, every team he's faced, it seems, has been really aggressive, especially aggressive running on him and doing damage. And the thing is, I don't know what his trade value is. His trade value is going to be nothing at this particular moment. So they really have nothing to lose these next few weeks, continuing to keep him in the rotation. But eventually, got to make a decision. He is a guy that, in the back of my mind, I thought he has fallen so short of expectations through the years, all while working with Mel Stoudemire Jr. For whatever reason. Maybe if he just has a different voice in his ear, maybe that would help. Maybe he just has different feedback and different coaching, something could get through to him. But the early returns in the post-Mel era have been pretty awful.
Yeah, it's just difficult to see there with Eddie. Ryan, any final thoughts, anything on Edward? Is this a guy you could see traded at the deadline or a reclamation project for another team, or how do you even see Edward's future with the Marlins going forward?
Yeah, Eli kind of said what I was going to mention. It's been pretty puzzling to see Edward fail with multiple pitching coaches, basically two different coaching regimes, entirely different. And I think in terms of his trade value, it's pretty much rock bottom right now. I think maybe some team could take a shot on him just because of his stuff. Maybe a team with a good pitching factory who has a reputation of fixing guys like the Guardians or the Dodgers or the Brewers or another team like that. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he just gets DFA'd and eventually claimed off waivers. Or maybe he even somehow clears waivers and just goes down to AAA.
Ooh. What do you think of that? Is that an option? Edward, does he have any options left to be able to do that? Or do you think that's just
the thing is, he doesn't have minor league options, and that's why it would be in that situation to DFA him at some point if the struggles continue. And yeah, I'm just thinking in my head whether the team would claim him at this point. But I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. He's going to be in this rotation for at least a few more turns, and we'll continue to follow it closely. But the thing is, like, as inconsistent as he's been in previous years, it usually has not looked like this several consecutive starts in a row. So as I might have a surprise for you in our predictions when it comes to Eddie, despite how much he's struggled so far. Oh,
okay. We'll see. Let's see there. Let's see if you can get a little bit to that. Last on the starting pitching, I want to mention each of the starting pitchers from that Dodgers game. Last one is Cal Quantrill. We'll go to you, Ryan. With Cal, chose the Marlins over other maybe longer contracts to be in this situation with the team and be able to pitch in the rotation and have to be able to pitch every 5 days. But with Cal, it just seems like it's maybe not working. There are some days where he looks fairly decent, and then others like the Dodgers where he's really struggling. And with Cal, what do you like? Maybe the balance with him. What do you think? Maybe the final result is for Cal, and how do you believe maybe the organization wants to move forward with Cal? Because he is giving innings, at least he is being able to make those starts. But when he does have those starts, it's just not there.
Yeah, and it's been super concerning, and it's been nothing short of a disaster for Cal Quantrill so far in his Marlins tenure. An ERA just north of 8 at 8.10. And you mentioned he was brought in to eat innings, and he kind of has done that. But for a guy who's 30 years old, you should be eating more innings, and he's just not able to put away hitters. He's having very lengthy 20-plus pitch innings. The strikeout rate is barely over 13%. That's 6th percentile. And he's not a strikeout guy, but he also can't put guys away in the first, second, or third pitch of the at-bat, and that's caused some very long innings and some starts that have just spiraled out of control. And, I don't really know what to make of him. I think if this continues, and if things continue this bad to where he has an ERA over 6 or in the very high 5s by around the trade deadline, sometime in July or August, he could just get DFA'd. Obviously, it's a 1-year contract, so you don't have much to lose, because they'll have guys by then, like maybe Robbie Snelling, Adam Mazur, and others knocking on the door at AAA.
Isn't it wild how almost identical the stat lines are for Quantrill, Sandy, and Connor Gillespie? I just can't get over that. It's almost
26.
it's an 8-something ERA for all three of them. It's almost identical innings totals for all three of them. Almost identical FIPS in the mid-5s for all three of them, and the base runners allowed too. And 3 very different. Well, I would say Sandy's a much different type of pitcher than Quantrill and Gillespie. Still, all 3 ending up in pretty much the same place to this point in the season, and that's how the Marlins get in this predicament somehow, despite everybody's expectation. This has been by far the biggest weakness on the team.
Yeah, for me personally, I think this needs to change sooner rather than later. I think maybe with this team, they feel like they have a chance to compete. They're not totally out of it yet. I know it's still early. You look at the Rockies' record, but at that point right now, they seem like a team that's already out of it, well out of it already at this point in the season. You look at the Marlins there, right behind the Nats. It just seemingly maybe try to get a little bit at 500, a little bit over. The Braves have not been that great this season. The Mets, who knows? Maybe this time last year we were singing the praises of the Mets, and then maybe at some point they might not make the playoffs. But with this pitching rotation for the Marlins, it just seems like, again, like I mentioned, there has to be a change. It's somewhere. They have to bring in some new blood, some new sense in this rotation that might have a kickstart, a jumpstart, something. I don't think bringing in Belloso every couple of days is really going to be that kick for the Marlins and guarantee a win at all. It's just guaranteeing some innings. And you look at today, he pitched a couple of days ago. You're not even going to get those innings today. This is a guy that might pitch 3 innings at most, maybe 4 if he's really cooking there. But it's not going to be the great, that great of a line of a day for the Marlins when you're having Belloso out there. It just seems like this team needs a kickstart of some type with this pitching. If it's Mazur, if it's Snelling, anybody that can really help in and get those innings for Miami and try to, I don't want to say rotate the clock, but kind of kickstart them. Because Sandy, I don't know what's happening to him. This is a guy that maybe we all thought we were all transformatized on him on spring training, just in awe of how well he was pitching. This is a guy right after that we were like, oh, he's going to bring the Marlins a haul. This is all-star. Maybe he can even get back to that Cy Young potential. To now he's been one of the worst pitchers in all of the National League.
That's a good point to bring up, that this team has kind of really hammered home the idea that spring training does not matter as much as it feels like it matters in the moment. For Sandy to look as encouraging as he did, or Connor Gillespie had a very good spring training. Kyle Stowers had a terrible spring training.
The opposite. Mm-hmm.
Most people wanted Kyle Stowers to get sent down coming out of camp because, a lot of this year before, but especially because of spring training as well. And yet we get into this situation where Stowers is one of the really shining stars of the Marlins at the moment, whereas so many other things have been disappointing.
Yeah, well, you mentioned him, Eli. Let's talk a little bit about Kyle Stowers because he has been the bright spot seemingly on this entirety of the offense throughout the entire season. Obviously, you can go with Augustine and maybe some other guys like that, Connor Norby, but they have not played the entirety of the season. They have not been there every game. Connor Norby with injuries, Augustine just coming up very recently, but Kyle Stowers had a career day the other day against the Dodgers. I know maybe not the best of pitching towards the end of that game. When Kyle Stowers got some of those hits, some of those RBIs, but his OPS, I believe, is now over 900. And I know Just Baseball just put out a tweet of the comparison between Kyle Stowers when he was in Baltimore and some part of his tenure with the Marlins last season to now what he's doing now. It's just completely two different players. Ryan, talk to me about Kyle Stowers. What you're seeing with him, how he's transformed himself from the Orioles, from that first part with the Marlins last season, from spring training where it seemed like everybody wanted him in AAA to start and really, he was maybe not one of the best in spring training for the Marlins to now it seems like, hey, this is the guy that can even be the all-star for the Marlins and is really looking at it right now.
Yeah, for me, the key for Stowers has been, number one, hitting fastballs. I think his overall numbers against fastballs may still not be too good. He's hitting fine against fastballs. He's still much better against breaking balls, but he's hitting over 300 against fastballs. So that's been very encouraging because last year he was completely incompetent against fastballs, and that was basically just the whole scouting report was to throw Kyle Stowers fastballs, especially if you can get ahead in the count. And this year, him being able to hit fastballs has helped him walk much more. His walk rate went from 6.2 last year all the way up to 10.8 this year. And also his bat speed has gone up. That's probably something that the coaching staff emphasized over the offseason. It's up nearly a full mile per hour. And yeah, just overall, I've seen a lot more competitive at-bats from Kyle Stowers. He's working deeper into counts, hitting the ball harder. And yeah, I feel like almost every facet of his game has gone up this year. So it's been great to see. He's been a nice fielder out there in right. He's made a few nice plays. And yeah, just overall, no complaints about Kyle Stowers. I like the strikeout rate. To go down a little bit more. It's at 27.9, but still he's able to hit over 900 in the OPS department at this point while striking out in the 17th percentile. So it's really nice to see.
Yeah, I'm still scared, as you mentioned, not just about the strikeout rate, but the whiff rate in particular. It's just hard I think it's impossible to be a 300 hitter when you're swinging and missing that often over an extended sample. So we'll see if that improves. There still is that vulnerability to high fastballs that he's getting around. Like even if he's swinging, missing on them early in the count, or he's at least able to foul them off and force a pitcher to make it a different choice. The production against left-handed pitching has been insane. That's another thing that I don't think is going to keep up, but it's just a fun nugget in it for him to be he's an everyday player now for this team. Mm-hmm. And that's mainly because he's shown that his at-bat quality against lefties is just as good as it is against righties. And the results are even better against lefties than righties. I did not see that coming. One of the other few complaints I had is that it's not really translating to a lot of game over the fence power. He only had 2 homers entering that final Dodgers game. And then all of a sudden, that's another box that he checks. He hits a couple different home runs off of, pretty sure it was 2 separate pitchers over the course of that game. So that's yet another thing where it's hard to poke holes in what he's done to this point in the season. And for him to do it on an everyday basis, he's now this is a huge opportunity for him, where it was one thing for him to make the roster. It was another thing for him to have to play most days, but for him to, especially in the aftermath of Conine's injury, he can play practically every single day for the foreseeable future and really establish himself before more prospects come up, before the expectations for the team really dial up into 2026 and beyond. This is a huge year for it. And you could not have possibly asked for anything more from him through the first month plus of the season.
Yeah, it's been such a positive for the Marlins, just looking at all the red there, how great he's been. Maybe a lot of people no one really expected this from Kyle, except maybe Kyle and maybe the coaching staff itself. But bringing in Kyle, let's bring in Alex, and let's talk to Alex Krutchik, who's at the ballpark covering this game along with Kevin. Kevin somewhere, maybe running on the field, who knows, talking to JJ Bleday. We'll find out later. But Alex, talk to us there. Injury report. Give us all the details coming up from from this game against the Athletics? Just the A's.
The traveling circus is in town this weekend, coming here from West Sacramento. Not regular Sacramento, just West Sacramento. Injury report is pretty status quo for most people. Most guys are just continuing rehab. The most notable of the news is that Yuri Perez is going to begin rehabbing. He's going to do 3 in Jupiter and then the rest up in Jacksonville, which is great. He's certainly ahead of schedule. He originally, we all thought that he was going to come in around the All-Star break, and now it looks like he could join them sometime in June. So really fantastic stuff. Really happy to see that he's progressing well. And outside of that, Nick Fortes is catching tonight up in Jacksonville, so it seems like, guys are starting to come back. And Ryan Weathers as well, continuing his rehab. The reinforcements, especially on the pitching side, are on their way back.
Yeah, it's funny for me to read the reports where they don't call them bullpen sessions anymore with this team. They call them pitch design sessions. So we got to update that lingo. It's the same thing. It's like the same sort of workload, except it's more often against live hitters than it is on a traditional bullpen mound and that stuff. Yeah, I want to get your take on Fortes and the catching situation coming up soon, because this is going to be his first time catching during his rehab assignment, but I think it's going to be done this weekend. He should be rejoining this team in the coming days in LA. How do you want that to shake out with him coming back and Liam Hicks and Augustin Ramirez already here? What would you do on the catching front?
The first thing I would do, and it's easier said than done, I would try to see if anyone would like to partner for a trade, because I do think that he has value as a catcher being available in the middle of the season if that was the case, because catchers aren't usually available in the middle of the season like this. So if he was, I think you'd get some value for him. I don't think you'd get in the top 10 guys in a system, but you would get some value. And if he is not traded and he comes back, I would say that Augustin should, in theory, get DH in first base, but I know this team really, really wants to give him as many reps as catcher as they can. So realistically, you can't really put him at DH/first base for every game. I really don't know. I really don't know. The answer is because you could send down Graham Pauley just to open up a roster spot, but even then, like, who plays where? Do you just have Hicks and Fortes at DH and first base and catcher, and it's just a carousel of first base, catcher, DH for all 3 of those guys, or what? I really don't think there's a correct answer, and I fear that no matter what they do, people will be pissed off, as is the nature of sports and following the Marlins just in general. But
I agree with the last part. People are going to be pissed off. I guess the only thing that wouldn't piss people off is if they sent down Graham Pauley, because that's my opinion. I think it's best for everybody if he actually gets real playing time instead of gathering dust.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
But even then, you have the issue of, well, who then plays first base and catcher every night? Do you still have Augustin as your starter, and then what do you do with Fortes and Hicks? Do you just leave Hicks on the bench for 90% of your games, or what? Like, it still doesn't. It solves the roster crunch, but doesn't solve the positional crunch.
Right. Oh, and I saw Kevin mention that coming to the ballpark, it looks a little different with some of the City Connect stuff going up in anticipation of tomorrow's debut. Yeah, what is your take on the new uniforms and any sort of signage you saw at the ballpark of hyping it up and showing people what it's going to look like?
I like the uniforms for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think that the Vice concept is overplayed. However, they did a very good job of not just copying Miami Heat. I feel like my friend over here, Kevin Burrell, his school, FIU, I feel just created a football version of the Heat's jersey. I don't think the Marlins did that here. I think they definitely did their own design. They did their own thing. It is very much their jersey with an Art Deco / Miami Vice inspiration to it, which is great. I also think they did a good job of making it unique and colorful without going too overboard to where it looks like a beer league softball uniform. I think it looks really good. The only thing I'm curious about is I do wonder what the racing stripes are going to look like on the field. In pictures, I think they look good. I think they look cool. They're unique. It's what, it wouldn't be my pick for a main jersey, but for a City Connect jersey, it's just the right amount of unique and flashy. So I'm just curious to see what it'll look like on the field. Because I remember when they debuted their black alternate jerseys and everyone loved them until they hit the field and they realized you really can't see the numbers because the numbers are black and the jersey's black and all you have is like a very thin neon trim around the numbers. So I'm curious to see what it looks like on the field from 100 feet away. But in pictures, I really like it. I'm not a fan of the 305 hat. It looks like something you'd get in a gas station. And I'm at the point where, like, we get it. Like, yeah, the 305 is the area code here. We get it. We've
No
let people know. I'm waiting for the team to be brave enough to put 786 on their jerseys. Where's the love for the 786 guys?
I want Ryan's take on the uniforms too, just because this is partially supposed to be an homage to the Florida Marlins days. There's like little elements in here that, from your perspective, you're somebody that has like no memory of the Florida era in there. So as the youngest person here, and also as somebody that doesn't really have that historical background, what's your just general take on these and how they compared to the previous City Connects, to the Sugar King stuff?
Yeah, so when I first saw the leaks from that one account, I kind of didn't believe it because I was like pretty sure that they were going to do something teal, and these to me just looked very Vice Heat copy like. But now that the actual uniforms have come out and we've seen them be modeled on players, I'm a pretty big fan of them. I think they incorporated the right amount of color while not incorporating too much vibrant, bright colors, and they just had the right amount of mix between bright colors and black. I'm a big fan of the font, actually. At first I wasn't, but now seeing the actual uniform, I like the font. And I actually disagree with Krutchik. I'm a pretty big fan of the hats as well. I think it's cool to have an area code on the hat. I think it's the first time an MLB team has ever put an area code on their hat. It does look a little bit gas station cheap-like, but I still think it's cool. I'm not going to complain about it. I was a big fan of the Red City Connects, but I felt like they kind of ran their course and they got a little old. So I'm just not complaining that we're getting new City Connects. And I also think it's cool that they were able to incorporate some stuff from the old Florida Marlins era while not going full teal, because I do feel like if they just brought back the teal and called the City Connect, that would be a little bit knockoff. Like we can save the teal for the, 25th and 30th anniversary seasons for the franchise.
Yeah, we'll see how everything looks. I'll be there helping out with the debut of the City Connects jerseys, and I'll let everyone know how they look in person and if they really are a gas station or maybe they actually might be worthy of it. Especially the hats, because I think the hats they're like three-tone colors, two-tone. It's the hats kind of have me there. But Alex, any final notes? Clayton, the Sacramento, Oakland, whatever, West Sacramento A's, the Marlins, anything you want to make note of before we let you go?
Sorry, I was watching a Nick Gordon live Instagram feed, so I got distracted. As for this matchup, I am excited. I think Oakland is a fun, exciting team. They're a team that maybe the Marlins could look like in about a year. I think that they're close to being competitive, and I think that this could be a good get-right series for the Marlins, because even though the A's are competitive, they're also a team that's beatable, and you're going to need it, because in 3 days, the Los Angeles Dodgers come back like a boomerang. You leave them in LA, and then they come right back to Miami.
I'm hearing Kevin back there. Yes, Kevin, you can check out Kevin's interview with highly rated top prospect best player Nick Kurtz and see how
Kevin
talking to him. But Alex, I appreciate you. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and don't let Kevin get all the ice cream and M&Ms.
I'll let him know. Thank you, guys.
All right, that's going to do it for Alex. You can always check out his Twitter. Kevin, they're going to have the coverage for today's game. But let's go ahead. Before we head on to the lineups, I want to hear from Ryan and you, Eli, really quickly, this catching situation with the Marlins. 3 catchers, Liam Hicks, Agustin Ramirez, Nick Fortes, who's due to come back any day now, finishing up his rehab assignment with Jacksonville. Eli, talk to me here. Agustin has just been almost a revelation for the Marlins, how well he's been hitting. I don't think you could send down a guy who's been this hot and has been performing this well for the Marlins, especially at the catcher position. You have Liam Hicks, Rule 5 guy, and maybe not someone you want to send back just yet. And Nick Fortes, of course, really great defender, has just been the cornerstone of the Marlins catcher position for the last couple seasons. What do you do here? You're Peter Bendix. You have the book. You have the roster. Just how do you handle the situation? It's a good one to have.
It is. I wrote about it this morning, and I think a lot of the reaction has been pretty aligned with my thought process that I just hold on to all these guys at the same time. As currently constructed, I think this roster is the best thing you can put on the field, and the guys that deserve it the most are all these catchers on the team at the same time. With Ramirez, it speaks for itself, the way that he is hit already at this point in his big league career. It really speaks for itself, the way that they put these lineups together. He is immediately a guy that's in the heart of their order, because he should be, because of the batted ball quality and the swing decisions he makes. Like, he's one of their better hitters already. He has more extra base hits than strikeouts, which is an insane number. Even in a small sample, he very clearly belongs in the big leagues, and he should be in the lineup most days, whether that is catching or as a DH. I think that piece is the one that's, even though he's the guy that's most that you could send down to the minors, he's the one that it would be a lot of outrage if they did that. And I think he has earned a very long leash to continue to get acclimated to the big leagues. And Hicks is the one that throws the wrench into it, because, as you mentioned, he's a Rule 5 guy. They cannot send him down to the minor leagues at any point this year unless they run him through waivers. He gets DFA'd. And the thing is, he's playing too well to be that kind of player. If they have to offer him back to his previous team, the Tigers, and they would take him back in a heartbeat, considering how he's played so far. For a guy to skip AA and still be very good on base guy, and to also make a lot of just really good situational hitting decisions, he's second on this team in runs batted in this season. I know that stat is a little bit antiquated, but the thing is, he's just been a net positive player. He's contributed to this team in a way that I think the Marlins should want to hold on to him long term as some sort of depth, even if he doesn't have a clear role with this team. They don't want to just give him away for nothing, just because Fortes is coming back and Fortes has experience. And Fortes is the one that I think Krutchik had mentioned it about being a possible trade candidate as the year goes on and potentially after the year. That makes a lot of sense. But there's no trade market right now for anybody, really. You don't see any substantial trades. Luis Arraez being the exception, but that was an anomaly where you just don't see teams don't know what they need at this point in the season. So for them to get anything of substance in return for Fortes, you just got to let it play out. So to me, you asked about how I think it was more Krutchik that was like, crisis, how do you fit them all together? To me, it's actually pretty simple, where I think Augustine catches about half the games, Fortes catches a couple times a week, and Hicks is the one that I think is buried on the bench, and that seems cruel and awkward for him, but that's how Rule 5 picks usually go, for them to actually survive. You guys saw, Daniel, I'm sure you remember how Nasim Nunez was on the Nats last year, and he barely played.
Yeah, he just came up on maybe to change up defensively or just be a runner. I think he had 30 at bats in the season, and he was there. And he was there every single day.
Yeah. So Hicks has already blown past that, and potentially, God forbid, if another injury pops up to Ramirez or Fortes, then all of a sudden, bam, he's in a regular role again. But to me, he's just going to be the last man on the bench for the time being, and that's fine. And you could use him to pinch hit against some righties. He would catch maybe once a week. And then, but I think Ramirez should not only be on the big league team, but he should be a priority to me in terms of getting regular playing time, and Fortes getting enough to, still show what he's got and try to build upon what was a good start to his season before he got hurt. And then, so in terms of the roster mechanics, you just send down Graham Pauley. You set him free because he is the one right now that is in that really awkward last guy on the bench role right now. This is not helping his development whatsoever. He's not really helping the team. It makes so much sense to put him down to Jacksonville. And yeah, let this play out. This is not a full season plan. I think you just take it as it goes because unfortunately, injuries pop up all the time. Players are streaky, especially rookies like Ramirez and Hicks. So yeah, you reevaluate it in a little bit, but I think the temporary solution I think it's pretty simple to find room for all three of these catchers at the same time.
Obviously, the Marlins are just waiting for Rob Brantley to come back. I think we can all just agree there. Just waiting for Brantley. But joking there, let's go ahead and look at the lineups. We only have like 20 minutes left. I want to go through this lineup, talk a little bit about the starting pitching matchups because some of them are very interesting, including tonight and tomorrow. And then go ahead and do prediction time. So let's go ahead and look at this lineup between the Miami Marlins and the Athletics. No city team, no city name, just the Athletics. Let's go ahead and look at the Marlins before we get into the Athletics. The Athletics do have an interesting lineup. Ryan, talk to me here. Stowers, Agustin, Wagaman just seems like the basic lineup as of late. With Liam Hicks, Dane Myers there hitting ninth. Very solid lineup there, maybe compared to the beginning of the season. What do you like here? Agustin hitting third, Kyle Stowers still in second. It's a solid lineup to go ahead and face a pitcher who's making his MLB debut.
Yeah, I think this is probably the Marlins' best case scenario lineup in terms of what they have available in their active roster for them. Obviously, no Fortes, no Conine, but these are probably the best 9 hitters on the current active roster. I have heard some people on Twitter complaining that they think Javier Sanoa deserves more playing time, and we were seeing him get an increasing amount of playing time. I know in Philadelphia he played a lot in that one series. He was playing a bit in that Seattle series, and then we barely saw him in LA, and he's out of the lineup again tonight. I don't know what his case looks like in terms of playing time going forward now with Norby back fully healthy and now pretty much playing every day after he got a few days off when he was first coming off the IL. And Otto's been perfectly healthy. Edwards has been perfectly healthy. And they're trying Wagaman out in left field, and it's worked pretty fine so far. So we might see Wagaman play an increasing amount of left field as long as Augustine stays on the roster and gets some DH days. So, yeah, I don't know what Sanoja's future looks like in terms of playing time. Maybe, I don't know, maybe eventually they option him for a bit if they think maybe he has some development left and he's not getting the playing time he needs on the major league roster. But, yeah, we'll have to see.
Eli, I want to go ahead and look at maybe one player. Or I want to talk about these two players, actually, Mervis and Edwards. X really hasn't been the best when it comes to hitting the baseball. And you mentioned earlier him and Hicks are the only players I know the only Marlins who have gone the whole season without a barrel. So that's very interesting there with X. I don't know if it's working, you think, leadoff, and then Mervis as well. This is a guy who's the definition of 3 true outcomes. And just with that strikeout rate, 35.5%, that is not something you want to see, especially in the majors. What's going wrong with Mervis and Edwards?
Yeah, I'll start with Mervis. I feel like that's more simple. He's just coming back down to earth compared to what he was the first 2 weeks of the season. He's a guy that had strikeout concerns when they acquired him. There's a reason why he was DFA'd by, well, not DFA'd, but he was DFA worthy by the trade. Basically, yeah, he may have been. Yeah, he was kind of in that situation where he is great at pulling fly balls, and when you do that with the raw power that he has, you're going to hit home runs at a pretty good rate. The question is how often you're going to be in those favorable counts in order to drive the ball, and how often you're able to get the pitches that are actually ones you can barrel up. And so, yeah, to this point, he's coming back down to earth where it's going to be a really low batting average for sure. And I think it's going to be somebody that does that a high percentage of the balls he puts in play are actually going to go over the fence. But I just, especially, at least for now, like, it makes a lot of sense to very strictly platoon him against right-handed pitching. He has to fully prove himself first against them before really being thought of as anything more than a platoon player right now. So at this point, they're in a stretch where they faced a lot of righties. He's been in a lot of favorable matchups, and yet the production has come back down to earth quite a bit in the past few weeks, where we've seen him bat as low as 7th in the lineup. I think he's a fine number 7 hitter against righties. So today, I'm a little surprised he's quite that high up. in tonight's lineup. I think he's still going to get a lot of playing time, but my expectation is not particularly high for him moving forward. X is the fascinating one because it didn't totally make sense that he was as amazing as he was last year. He did get a little bit lucky. You mentioned the barrel stat. He barely barreled any balls last year either. It's very much a Luis Arraez batted ball profile where he doesn't hit the ball hard at all, and he has to really luck into home runs of any kind or even extra base hits that go over the outfielder's head. So he needs to make contact at a high rate, and that has slipped a little bit this year. To me, one thing is that he has been like seemingly trying to drive the ball in the air more than he did last year in a way that doesn't make sense for his skill set. It's not a Matt Mervis profile where if he does hit a ball pretty hard, it's usually not going to go over the wall anyway. It's usually going to be an out. So he's hitting just a lot more fly outs this year. His average launch angle, you see it at 10.9% there. Last year was only 6.7. So like that is up a lot in a way that other hitters, that's a good thing. But for him, it's diminishing returns because when he hits the ball in the air, it's usually just a ball that's going to hang up for the outfielder and be a pretty routine play rather than something that does damage right there. So he's gotten a little bit away from the kind of impact he wants to make. Coincidentally or not, he has been using a torpedo bat on this team. That's done really well for Kyle Stowers, but for Edwards, it's been he was somebody that I don't know necessarily needed any sort of bat change compared to considering the success that he had last year and the kind of hits that he ends up getting in the first place. So he's one where kind of similar to Mervis, I think he should keep playing a lot on this team, but I don't know if I feel great about him as a leadoff hitter moving forward when the offense as a group has been fine this year. I think there are other unconventional ways that they could fill out that leadoff spot. I think I mentioned Kyle Stowers on a recent stream as somebody that it'll be unconventional, but if he's just a better offensive player than Edwards is, then that's a guy that you want coming up more often. With X, the other element to it is still the lack of base stealing. Like I don't think he's stolen a base in 2.5 or 3 weeks for a guy that even admittedly was going to make that a priority this year. So that's one of the big things that they have to solve here, regardless of we think the hitting is going to improve. I trust him to figure that out and to calibrate his swing in a better way moving forward. The thing is, it's a big part of his value last year is being able to steal bases aggressively and at a high efficiency. And that has not been there at all for the past few weeks. So that's pretty top of mind for the Marlins to figure that out. And for us to get a better understanding, we might have our guys grill him a little bit more in terms of what happened on the base stealing front. That's what that really separates him from being a solid player to a guy that you could potentially build around, is being able to add value in that aspect.
The last player I want to mention before we look at this A's lineup, and really someone that the entirety of the chat has almost been mentioning the entire time we've been talking about the Marlins lineup, and that's Eric Wagaman. Putting him there in left field, he seemingly has been proving a lot of Marlins people wrong, whether it's people on Twitter, whether it's us, whether it's whoever. This is a guy that maybe a lot of people thought, oh, man, he'll be gone, he'll be DFA'd, so something will happen with him. We won't see it the second half of the season. So now he feels like one of the best players on the team. Ryan, with Eric Wagaman, what have you seen from him, and also playing left field as well? He's been at least somewhat solid. This is a guy, hey, even me, I thought, it would just be, first base and occasionally maybe other parts of the infield, but he's been a pleasant surprise for the Marlins for sure.
Yeah. You look at Eric Wagaman, he has the highest average exit velo on the team, and that's after a very rough start to the season. I feel like it was the first maybe 10, maybe 12 games of the season. He was one of the least productive hitters in this Marlins lineup, and then ever since then, something clicked, and he's been very productive, arguably the best hitter in this lineup. He's right there with Kyle Stowers and Augustin Ramirez. And, just overall, he's been a huge surprise. He was brought in on a split contract, and nobody had really heard of him. I had personally never heard of him when he was with the Angels, and I think even you guys from Fish on First were relatively unfamiliar with him for how much you guys know about the game of baseball. I expect Wagaman to be a mainstay unless he starts trending in the wrong direction. And I think now that we've seen him at least play left field at a serviceable level, that increases value even more because he won't take playing time away from Augustine Ramirez and Matt Mervis when he's playing first or DH.
Well said there. Eli, well, let's go ahead and look at this Athletics lineup. Some very interesting names here in the A's. A lot of young names. A name that a lot of us are very familiar with. We could talk about in just a few seconds. But Eli, I want to talk about this first person before we get into the others. I want to talk about Jacob Wilson because this is a player that seemingly it feels like has been lighting up baseball as of late for just very different reasons. This is a guy who took a long time before he even got his first walk. I remember Nate telling us that he just, or Nate or Hector told us that he just got his first 3-0 count, 3-ball count just a while ago. Just make up a little bit about Jacob Wilson's profile because he's not going to walk, but on the other side, this is a guy who's not even going to strike out as well.
Yeah, and he had insane minor league numbers to get up to the big leagues that quick. As a guy that was drafted in just 2023, and he debuted last year. I remember almost immediately after he debuted, I was so bummed because he had a minor injury and missed some time. But now he is cemented on this team, batting near the top of the lineup for a very talented and deep lineup. So it speaks to the ability that he has. The strikeout and walk rates kind of say it all. That it's very good Luis Arraez-esque for his ability to put the bat on the ball right now. And it's similar to X defensively, where that's a good problem to have, but it is a question about where he sticks because I don't think he's going to be a shortstop all that much moving forward. Defensively, he grades out very poorly to this point in his big league career. He profiles more as a second baseman moving forward. Just doesn't hit the ball hard, but he knows where he wants to hit it. And he is very aggressive. Let me see if I can find the stats on the pitches that he sees. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he is averaging like 3 pitches per plate appearance. The league average is right around 4. For him to be like a full pitch less. Well, yeah. Well, I don't know if you call that leading the league. It's like, yeah, this is usually a bad stat. It's a good thing to work deep counts, generally speaking. And with him, just hyper aggressive, but also just exceptionally talented with how much he's able to put the ball in play. Is making contact about 90% of the time when he swings it. So that's incredible. He's very pesky. This is a lineup that has a ton of power in it, and he's the guy that has like the opposite profile. So that complements the rest of the team pretty well.
A lot of slugging in this lineup, especially with Soderstrom, Rooker, and Shea Langoliers, just really guys who are going to go ahead and try to crush that baseball. But let's go ahead, Eli. One more, or we could talk about this player, JJ Bleday, making his long-awaited return to the Marlins. I'm not even 100% sure if this is his first return back since he got traded in that AJ Puck deal, or excuse me, AJ Puck. Yeah, I got. Oof. But talk to us about Bleday there. How has he even been? I know last year he was somewhat decent. I believe he finished with a 2.5 WAR. Now this season, I feel like maybe he's come a little bit down back to earth with his offense and also his defense as well, not playing a huge role.
Yeah, I'm not a Bleday hater. It's just me watching him last year. I was not convinced that he had fully turned the corner and become the best version of him. I didn't feel like that was totally sustainable. Last year, he was, by any measure, an above average everyday player for them in center field, occasionally sitting against lefties. But even as the year went on, he really did well enough to earn himself a spot in the lineup every day with 20 homers. It was a 120 OPS plus, and with a manageable strikeout rate to go along with it. But the year before, this looks a lot like the year before. This looks a lot like 2023, where I don't see him as a high average player. Like coming through the Marlins system, he never really seemed like that. So I felt like last year was kind of the outlier where he floated around league average. Yeah, to me, he's somebody that he's trying for home runs, but he's not particularly. It's maybe average power at best. It doesn't even stand out that much. Like to me, he's a guy that really needs to be patient and work himself into favorable counts in order to get his best swing off. And that's something that he's always had a good understanding of how he's being pitched, and to draw walks at pretty decent frequency. Like he's somebody that's going to be a big part of his game. It's more about the OBP than it is the batting average and overall production. And he's another guy in an awkward spot where he's playing center field, even though he's not a good center fielder. Like he just doesn't have the athleticism we typically associate with the position right there. Yeah, I feel like last year that might have been it was his only full year as a big leaguer thus far, and I feel like that might be his career year. I don't know if he's necessarily going to move forward from there. I think all things considered, there have been ups and downs. I think both teams did fine in that deal with Puck and Blade going the other way. This is a very important year for him in order to show that last year was not a fluke. Show people like me that maybe I'm wrong. He still has a lot to prove at this stage of his career, for sure, in order to stick around and actually be a big piece of their team. But yeah, this is going to be his second visit to Miami as an A. He was there 2 years ago as well. And I think he had a really good series against them last year when they were in Oakland last time. This is now going to be for the third straight year that he's playing the Marlins head-to-head.
See what happened there. Very interesting. But I think, Eli, now is a perfect time to go ahead for prediction time. We also have a prediction video from Kevin, Alex, and a very, very, very special guest. But Eli, let's get that music. Let's see a little bit into prediction time.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Okay, let us just quickly get a glimpse at the leaderboard coming into tonight. This season, just terrible season for myself. For a lot of us. Kevin is the one that's faring best among our staffers on here, but there's Ryan right in the middle there. We keep track of the predictions from our staffers, our stream guests, and our valued super subs. Thank you to Ryan for being a longtime super sub of ours right here. Yeah, he was one of the best at this last year, and he's right in the middle of the pack again this year. Certainly better than myself. I'm still below the cutoff on here. So you have to go to the site in order to even find where I am on these standings to this point in the season. We predict how many games the Marlins are going to win in this series, who will be the series MVP as determined by win probability added. Without further ado, we will go to the ballpark to hear from Kevin, Alex, and Jeremiah Geiger from Locked On Marlins.
Alrighty, Marlins and A's, 3-game set. We have a very special guest, Jeremiah Geiger of Locked On Marlins. I'm going to go with the Marlins taking 2 out of 3, and Eric Wagaman is the series MVP.
I'm going to go with Marlins 2 out of 3 as well. And I'm going to say that this is the series that Xavier Edwards gets back into it.
You know, on the Locked On podcast, I said the A's were going to take 2 out of 3, but I'm in the ballpark. This place is beautiful. Give me the Marlins to sweep the A's, and Kyle Stowers is the MVP.
Back to you, Eli.
Isn't that terrible? He's telling his audience one thing, and he's telling us, our audience, a completely different thing in terms of what to expect from the series.
Lone Depot magic, Eli. It just changes. You walk in there, you just feel the World Series. You feel it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we enjoyed Jeremiah's content. Locked On Marlins. I think we have a big crossover between his audience and ours. So thanks to everybody that enjoys his stuff, that watches ours, and we encourage you guys to check out his pod every single weekday. He puts out new stuff about this team. I will, I'll cue up the music and do this whatever order you want to, Daniel.
All right. Usually I would have Kevin lead off, but since we have someone else who's right around that age range, let's start off with Ryan.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Marlins to win 2 out of 3, and I'm going to say Kyle Stowers stays hot and wins series MVP.
All right. I'll go up. I've been tossing and turning from this. I would like to see the Marlins get out of this and win a couple games, but I think the Athletics are a very underrated team. I had them making the playoffs this year, and Mark Kotsay winning Manager of the Year in my predictions. And to keep that train going, I'm going to have to go Athletics win 2 out of 3. And my MVP for Alex Carver, Mr. J.J. Bleday. Eli.
I think the Marlins are going to stop the bleeding right here, coming in slumping, of course, but they'll take 2 out of 3 against the A's at home. They really need it to calm everybody down after giving away so much of the good vibes from early on in the year. Their offense is still going to keep them in most of these games and give them a chance. The off day yesterday coming into the series helps with the availability of their pitching staff, especially their bullpen, that has been really overworked to this point in the season. I alluded to it earlier in the show. I'll go way off the grid here and go with the struggling Edward Cabrera to pitch a gem in the middle game of this series to lead the Marlins to a win in that situation, pick up MVP honors over the course of this. First quality start for Edward this entire season to continue to tantalize people with his amazing pure talent. Even if it doesn't show up as consistently as people would like, it's going to show up in this series to push the Marlins over the edge and get them out of this weekend feeling better about themselves.
All right, we'll see if Mr. Edward can pull out some of the magic there from Lone Depot Park and maybe a quality start there, or earn him maybe 3 more months on the roster and see what happens with that. But if you want to keep going, keep watching FOF. This is FOF Live presented by About the Fans. For myself, Daniel, for Eli, for Ryan, for Alex at the ballpark, for Kevin out at the ballpark. Jeremiah, thank you for joining us for that prediction time video. About the Fans, FOF Live. As always, go Fish.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.